They say that in every family, everyone is cast in a role. My sister, Mallerie, was the star. I was the understudy, the quiet one in the wings, born to applaud her every move. I had accepted my part, but when she turned her cruelty onto my 9-year-old daughter, Mave, the script went out the window, minutes before my daughter's big school contest, a competition she had poured her heart and soul into for months. My sister ripped her costume and dumped a can of red paint all over it, as Mave stood there, heartbroken and covered in paint. Mallerie just sneered, a look of pure, venomous triumph on her face. "Now my girl will win for sure," she whispered. When I confronted them, my parents sided with her, of course. They always did. But this time, I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I did something else. 30 minutes later, as my daughter walked onto that stage, the entire auditorium, including my stunned family, was left completely speechless. Because the outfit my sister had tried to destroy, well, it had just become the most powerful costume of all. This is the story of how my family tried to break my daughter, but instead, they unleashed a rebellion that had been simmering for 30 years. If you want to understand the scale of what my sister tried to destroy that day, you first have to understand what she was aiming for: a 9-year-old's heart, meticulously stitched into a costume of felt and glitter. Every year, Northwood Elementary hosts its creative arts showcase. It's less of a talent show and more of a miniature, chaotic Broadway production. Picture it: a gymnasium that smells faintly of floor wax and adolescent anxiety, stage lighting that flickers ominously, and an audience of parents armed with iPhones and grandparents with camcorders the size of small bricks. The entire school attends. The stakes for a 4th grader are monumental. The winners get to represent the school at the district festival, a local spectacle that feels, at that age, like the Olympics. For the past 3 months, my daughter, Mave, had been living and breathing this contest. It was her entire world. Forget Roblox, forget TikTok dances. Her conversations were a whirlwind of choreography ideas, song choices, and detailed, passionate monologues about the emotional arc of her performance. She is a child of fierce, unwavering determination, the kind of kid who will practice a single, spin in our living room until she's so dizzy she stumbles into the coffee table, then get up and do it again because, in her words, "The extension wasn't perfect, Mom." And the costume? Oh, the costume. For weeks, our apartment had been a glitter-bomb disaster zone. We found fabric scraps stuck to our socks, sequins in our cereal bowls, and I had a permanent collection of hot glue burns on my fingertips. I'd help with the tricky parts. The sewing machine was my domain, but Mave had designed it herself. She was a 9-year-old with a sketchbook full of ambitious, slightly impossible designs and an unshakable vision. She was creating a phoenix. The costume was a masterpiece of layered tulle in shades of orange, red, and gold with hand-sewn feathers, tipped in iridescent glitter. The headpiece was an intricate creation of wire and beads that she had spent hours crafting. To her, this wasn't a school project. This was her identity. This was her chance to stand on that stage and silently scream to the world, "Look at me. I am here. I am good enough." A sentiment I understood all too well, which is why what happened next made my blood boil hotter than the tip of that glue gun. To be fair, the pressure in our family has always been a little skewed. My sister, Mallerie, was born for the spotlight. From the time she could walk, she was enrolled in beauty pageants, dance recitals, and choir solos. Our parents' home is a shrine to her achievements, shelves groaning under the weight of plastic trophies, walls covered in framed photos of her in sequined outfits, her smile, wide and practiced. She sparkled. She was praised, cheered on, and celebrated for every step she took. I, on the other hand, was the quiet one, the sensible one. I was told it just wasn't for me. Maybe you shouldn't try out for the play, honey, my mother would say, her voice gentle, as if she were saving me from a terrible fate. You don't want to embarrass yourself. Not everyone's cut out for that kind of thing. You're better off watching from the audience. They didn't say it like an insult. They said it like advice, like they were protecting me from a disappointment they had already decided was inevitable. And for the most part, I believed them. I stopped asking to join things. I found my place in the background, in the quiet hum of the library, in the neat organization of my notebooks. I told myself that's just the way it was. Mallerie was the star. I was the stagehand. Years later, when Mave was born, I made a silent promise to myself. She would never grow up in a shadow. I cheered for her crayon scribbles like they were Rembrandts. When she danced around the living room to pop music, I clapped like she'd just won a Tony. I wanted her to grow up knowing, without a doubt, that her voice mattered, that her dreams were valid, that she was entitled to take up as much space in the world as she wanted, that families have long memories and old habits die hard. The dynamic shifted, but it never truly broke. When Mallory's daughter, Brianna, who was the same age as Mave, showed an interest in performing, she was showered with praise. You're natural, just like your mother. You'll win for sure. When Mave showed the same interest, her ambitions were met with a chorus of gentle, concerned warnings from my parents. Are you sure, sweetie? A lot of people will be watching. You don't want to end up in last place, do you? It's just for fun, remember? Don't get your hopes up. They didn't say it to hurt her. That's the worst part. They said it in the same tone they had always used with me, as if they were just being realistic, saving her from a fall they believed was coming. The moment that still stuck in my throat had happened a few weeks earlier. Mave, bursting with excitement, had begged to perform her full routine for the family costume and all. We all gathered in my parents' living room. Mave pressed play on a small speaker, her little body trembling with a mixture of nerves and joy. She twirled in her homemade phoenix costume, going through her entire act. Every spin, every step, every bit of drama she had practiced in front of her bedroom mirror for weeks. She finished, panting, her cheeks flushed, her eyes bright with hope. Waiting for the applause, her cousin, Brianna, sat on the couch with her arms crossed, looking bored. Mallory's smile was as thin as a razor blade. My parents gave Mave a polite, restrained clap and a tight little, "That's very nice, dear." Very creative. I saw Mave's shoulders drop. I saw the light in her eyes dim just a little. She forced a smile, but she knew. Kids always know. They know the difference between genuine pride and polite tolerance. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was projecting my own childhood insecurities onto the situation. But deep down, I knew what I saw. It was jealousy from my sister and the same old, casual favoritism from my parents that I'd grown up choking on. And now, here we were, on the morning of the contest, the culmination of months of Mave's hard work. I should have known the storm was coming. On the morning of the contest, Mave was a jittery ball of excited, nervous energy. She practically vibrated as she put on her costume. The school had assigned each of the main contestants a small private classroom to get ready and rehearse. Mave wanted to practice her routine one last time alone to get in the zone, and I, trying to be the cool, supportive mom who doesn't hover, gave her space. I stepped away for just a few minutes, maybe 10 at the most. I went to the cafeteria to grab a bottle of water and chatted with another parent about the bake sale. I thought it was the right thing to do. I thought I was showing her I trusted her. I wasn't there when it happened, when the classroom door finally creaked open. I knew instantly that something was terribly wrong. Mave stumbled out, not with the confident glow of a performer ready for her moment, but with the dazed, broken look of a trauma victim. Her eyes were red, her cheeks wet with tears, and her beautiful costume, her phoenix masterpiece, was dripping. In thick, gloppy, bright red paint dot, it wasn't just splashed either. It had been rubbed in, smeared across the delicate tulle, so it sank into every seam. And the fabric itself was ripped, a jagged, angry tear running from the shoulder down to the waist. I froze. My brain short-circuited. For a split second, I thought maybe she had tripped and fallen into a can of paint left by the art department. That would have been bad enough. But the look in her eyes, a look of profound personal betrayal, told me this was much, much worse. "Mama," she choked out between sobs, her small body trembling. It was Aunt Mallerie. She did it. Everything. Inside me dropped like a stone. My sister, my own sister. I knelt and grabbed her shoulders gently, my own hand shaking. "What do you mean she did it, sweetie? Tell me what happened." She came in while I was practicing. Mave sobbed, burying her face in my shoulder. She said she couldn't finish the sentence. That was all I needed. My daughter's tears, her ruined costume, her broken voice. I felt a white-hot heat rise in my chest, the kind of primal, protective rage that makes you want to rip doors off their hinges. I stood up, my movements sharp and jerky. I stormed across the hallway, Mave trailing behind me, to the classroom where Mallerie was helping her own daughter, Brianna, with her makeup. And there she was, perfectly composed, a look of mild surprise on her face, as if she hadn't just poured acid on a 9-year-old's dream. "You did this," I spat. Heads in the hallway turned. Other parents glanced over, their chatter dying down. Mallerie widened her eyes, tilted her head, and played the innocent act like she was auditioning for the role of a saint. "Me?" she said, her eyebrows climbing towards her hairline. "Don't be ridiculous. Why would I ever do something like that?" "Because you're a jealous, petty, insecure monster," I thought. "Because your daughter is in the same contest and you can't stand the idea of her losing to mine." But saying it out loud would have been pointless. It would have been my word against hers. I leaned in closer so only she could hear, my voice a low, dangerous hiss. "I know it was you, Mallerie." Her cloying, expensive perfume hit me in the nose, sharp and fake, just like her. And that's when she let her mask slip. For just a fraction of a second, her lips curled into a smug, triumphant smirk. She leaned in, her voice a venomous whisper against my ear. "Now my girl will win for sure." I swear my hands shook with the effort it took not to slap her right there, in front of everyone. Before I could unleash the torrent of rage building inside me, a teacher appeared, fussing over Maeve's costume. The principal came too, his face a mask of concern. Parents murmured. Someone asked if Mave would still be able to perform. Mallerie backed away, her innocent, concerned aunt face firmly back in place. I wanted to scream. She had just admitted it to me, but what good would it do? To everyone else, she was the doting aunt, worried about her poor, clumsy niece. The principal cleared his throat, eager to restore order. "To keep things fair and on schedule," he announced, "Mave will perform last. That will give her some extra time to make adjustments." Perform last, 30 minutes. That was all we had. The clock was ticking back in the small, sterile classroom. Mave collapsed onto a chair, sobbing into her hands. The room felt like a crime scene. Her costume looked like someone had taken a knife to it, then decided knives weren't fun enough and grabbed a can of paint for good measure. The red was streaked deep into the fabric, rubbed in so hard it looked like a wound. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something, maybe both. Instead, I knelt down in front of her, my own hands gripping my knees to keep them from shaking. Tell me exactly what she said, I asked, my voice quiet. Maeve's face crumpled. She came in while I was practicing. She said my costume was pretty, but that Brianna's was better. Then she said she wanted to help me fix a loose feather. She pressed her palms together as if trying to squeeze the memory into words. She grabbed the shoulder and she ripped it. And then she grabbed the paint can from the art supplies in the corner. She said, "Red is a much better color for you, honey. It matches your face when you're about to cry." Maeve stopped, sobs catching in her throat. I waited. Sometimes silence works better than questions. Her voice came out small, a tiny, broken whisper. She smiled while she did it. And then she said, "Better get used to losing, sweetheart." There it was. The cruelty in plain, unvarnished words. I could almost hear Mallerie's voice saying it, low and cutting. The kind of remark designed to lodge itself in a 9-year-old's heart like a shard of glass and stay there forever. I swallowed hard because if I spoke right then, it wouldn't have been words. It would have been fire, and this is where my mind, in its frantic search for a solution, a lifeline, flickered backward. "Maeve," I said, my voice suddenly sharp. When she came in, "Were you filming?" She blinked at me, confused. Through her tears. "What? Your phone?" "You've been filming your practices all week to watch them back. Did you have it on just now?" Her mouth dropped open. A flicker of something, not hope, but possibility, flashed in her eyes. I think so. Yes, I put it on the table over there, propped up against the book so I could watch myself later. We both froze. Then I scrambled for her small, glitter-covered backpack, yanked out her phone, and swiped frantically until the video gallery came up, and there it was, the most recent file. My thumb hovered over the play button, my heart pounding. I pressed play. The video was angled low from where the phone was propped on the table, but it caught everything. The classroom door opening. Mallerie slipping into the room, her sweet, fake smile in place. Her words, muffled but audible. The sharp, sickening sound of fabric tearing, the wet splash of paint. Her hands moving with a vicious energy, smearing the red paint down the front of the costume, grinding it into the seams. And then her voice, clear as a bell in the quiet room, dripping with malice. "Better get used to losing, sweetheart." I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles went white. Maeve covered her mouth with both hands, her eyes wide with a horrified awe as she watched her own violation play out on the screen. Proof. We finally had proof. For years, Mallerie's cruelty had been brushed off as accidents, misunderstandings, or me just being too sensitive. But this was undeniable, recorded, permanent. I felt something inside me shift. Not relief, not yet, not victory. Just a cold, solid certainty. Maeve looked at me, her eyes huge. "What do we do?" Her voice cracked again, and for a second, she looked so small, so fragile. I wanted to scoop her up, take her home, and never let her face the cruelty of the world or our family again. Instead, I placed the phone down carefully on the table and took her small, trembling hand in mine. "We're not quitting," I said. My voice surprised me. It was steady, firm, like it belonged to someone who actually had a plan. "But my costume?" She whispered, her gaze falling on the ruined phoenix. I squeezed her hand, my eyes locking with hers. "We'll deal with the costume, but you are still going on that stage." Her chin trembled. She wanted to believe me, but she didn't. Not yet. I forced a smile, though my own stomach was twisted into a tight, angry knot. "Trust me," I said. "We're not done here, not even close." Asterisk, the clock in the hallway ticked, each second a tiny hammer against the anvil of my anxiety. 30 minutes. We had 30 minutes to undo an act of pure, calculated malice. Maeve sat slumped in the chair, her small shoulders shaking, her gaze fixed on the ruined costume. It hung off her, torn and stained, a monument to her aunt's cruelty. The vibrant dream of a phoenix was now a nightmare in red paint. "It's over," she whispered, her voice so small it was barely audible over the distant sound of another child's performance music starting up. "No," I told her, my voice surprising me with its steadiness. "It's not." I knelt in front of her, my hands on her paint-stained knees. "Mave, look at me." She slowly lifted her head, her eyes red-rimmed and full of a despair that no 9-year-old should ever have to feel. "She wanted to break you," I said, my voice low and fierce. "She wanted you to quit. She wanted you to cry in this room while her daughter took the prize. Are you going to let her win?" She shook her head, a tiny, hesitant movement. "Good," I said, a plan starting to form in the chaos of my mind, an idea so wild it just might work. "Because we're not quitting. We're not fixing this costume, honey. We are going to transform it." She looked at me, confused. "What's a phoenix?" "Mave, what does it do?" She sniffled, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. It burns. And then it's reborn from the ashes." I smiled, a real sharp smile this time. "Exactly. She didn't ruin your costume, baby. She just provided the fire. Now let's go tell them the story of how you rose from the ashes." That small classroom became our war room. The first thing I did was lock the door. No more interruptions. No more concerned teachers or well-meaning parents offering useless platitudes. It was just me and Mave, a team. "Okay," I said, taking charge. "First, we need weapons." I rummaged through the teacher's desk drawers, my movements brisk and purposeful. I found a pair of sharp fabric scissors, a stapler, and a roll of black electrical tape. Then I raided the art supply closet in the corner, emerging with a tray of black and silver glitter, a bottle of craft glue, and a set of black permanent markers. Mave watched me, her sobs subsiding, replaced by a wide-eyed curiosity. "Give me." "The costume," I said. She carefully slipped out of the ruined garment and handed it to me. I laid it out on the floor like a patient on an operating table. The rib was jagged and ugly. The paint was a smear of violent red. "Right," I said, picking up the scissors. "If we're going to have a tear, it's going to be a deliberate one." With a few quick, decisive snips, I turned the ugly, accidental rip into a series of sharp, artistic slashes like claw marks. Then I took the black marker and carefully outlined each one, giving them a charred, burnt look. "She wounded you?" I explained to Mave as I worked. "So now we show them the scars." Next, the paint. It was still tacky in places. "This isn't just paint anymore," I declared. "This is fire. This is the blood of the phoenix." I took the silver glitter and sprinkled it along the edges of the red streaks, making it shimmer under the fluorescent lights. Then I used the black glitter and the glue to create ash spots, dark patches from which the fiery colors seemed to emerge. Mave, catching on, grabbed a marker. "Can I help?" "Absolutely," I said. "Draw cracks." Like the fire is breaking through. For the next 20 minutes, we worked in a focused silence. Her small hands, which had been trembling with tears just a short while ago, were now steady, drawing intricate, web-like patterns around the paint smears. We weren't just patching a costume, we were telling a story. We were turning an act of vandalism into an act of art, an act of defiance. With 5 minutes to spare, we looked at our creation. The costume was transformed. It was no longer the bright, innocent phoenix Mave had designed. This one was different. It was darker, fiercer, more powerful. It was a warrior phoenix. A survivor. I helped her put it back on. Then I took a deep breath and turned to the final, most crucial piece of our plan. I picked up her phone. "Are you ready to show them what really happened?" She looked at her reflection in the dark classroom window, at the scarred, beautiful creature staring back. At her, she stood up a little taller, her chin held high. "Yes," she said, her voice clear and strong. "I am." We walked out of the classroom just as the announcer was saying, "And now, our final contestant for the morning showcase, Mave." I gave her hand one last squeeze. "You've got this," I whispered. I handed a small USB drive to the tech crew backstage. "There's been a last-minute change to her performance," I said, my voice calm and authoritative. "This is her new introduction. Please play the entire video before her music starts." The technician, a harried-looking high school volunteer, just nodded and plugged it in. I found my seat in the darkened auditorium just as the lights on stage dimmed. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I saw my family, 3 rows ahead. Mallerie was whispering to my mother, a confident smile on her face. They thought they had won. They had no idea what was coming. The huge projector screen at the back of the stage flickered to life, but instead of the usual title card with a contestant's name, the shaky, low-angle footage from Mave's phone filled the screen. The audience murmured, confused. Then the classroom door in the video opened. Mallerie walked in. The audio picked up her syrupy, fake sweet voice. The sharp, sickening sound of fabric tearing echoed through the gymnasium speaker system. A collective gasp rippled through the audience. Then came the splash of paint in Mallory's hands, larger than life on the screen, viciously smearing the red streaks, and finally, her voice clear as a bell, dripping with malice. "Better get used to losing, sweetheart." The murmurs in the audience turned into a wave of shocked, angry whispers. I saw heads snap around to stare at Mallerie. Her face, illuminated by the glow of the screen, had gone ghost white. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father looked like he'd been punched. The video ended. The screen went black. For a heart-stopping second, there was absolute stunned silence, and then a single spotlight hit the center of the stage. Mave walked out. The whispers stopped. Everyone knew her costume had been ruined. They had just watched it happen. But under the lights, it didn't look ruined anymore. The tears in the fabric, outlined in black, looked like battle scars. The red paint streaks blazed across her chest like fire and blood. The glitter we had added shimmered like embers. She looked fierce, defiant, beautiful. The music began, the same gentle, hopeful track she'd practiced for months. But now it sounded different. Mave lifted her chin, took her first step, and began to dance. It was her routine. Every spin, every drop, every move she had drilled again and again. But now it was more. Every motion carried the weight of what had just happened. When she spun, it was with a furious defiance. When she dropped low to the ground, it was a moment of raw, visible hurt. And when she rose again, her arms wide, her head thrown back, it was an act of pure survival. The audience was captivated. No one coughed. No one whispered. They were caught in the spell of her story. She wasn't just a 9-year-old dancing. She was a phoenix, showing them her wounds, and then showing them how she was rising from the fire, stronger than before. By the final sequence, the hall was silent, holding its breath. She hit her last spin, dropped low one final time, and then rose slowly, her arms stretched wide, her small face a mixture of pain and triumph, the costume glowing like embers under the spotlight. The music faded. The lights held on her. Silence. You could hear her breath over the microphone, heavy, real. For a moment, no one moved. Then the first clap cracked the silence like a gunshot. Another followed, and then the whole room erupted. It wasn't just applause. It was a roar. Parents were on their feet. Teachers were clapping until their hands were red. Kids were shouting her name. Mave stood there, chest heaving, tears streaming down her face. But this time, they weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of victory. A 9-year-old in a ripped, painted costume, standing taller than anyone else. In the room, and in that roar of applause, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Because what came next, after the trophies and the tears, would leave us all speechless. The applause eventually faded, but the energy in the gymnasium remained electric. Mave walked off stage, her cheeks flushed, her hair wild, her eyes wide, as if she wasn't sure if she just lived it or dreamed it. I met her in the wings and held her. She clung to me, her body still trembling, but buzzing with a new, powerful energy, like she'd swallowed lightning. "You did it," I whispered into her hair. "You were incredible, but applause fades." I know that better than most. What doesn't fade is the cold, hard stare of a family that feels like it's been publicly shamed. Mallerie was still sitting 3 rows ahead, her jaw clenched so hard I thought her teeth might crack. My parents sat beside her, stiff as statues, their lips pinched into those tight little lines I knew so well. It was the same look they used to give me when I had. In their eyes, embarrassed the family, which could mean anything from crying. In public to daring to exist in Mallerie's shadow dot, so while Mave was glowing from her standing ovation, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. The jury, a panel of teachers, and a local artist slipped out to deliberate. The audience buzzed, with chatter about the performance, but my focus stayed locked on my family. My parents leaned in towards Mallerie, whispering urgently. She just nodded once, a sharp, jerky movement, like they were plotting their next move. Of course, I thought, even now. After everything, 15 minutes of silence stretched like an hour. Mave chewed her lip raw beside me. I held her hand, my own hand shaking slightly, though I hid it in my lap. When the jury returned, a hush fell over the room. The head judge, the school's stern-faced art teacher, Mrs. Gable, cleared her throat. "Before we announce the winners," she said, her voice amplified by the microphone, "the judges would like to make a statement. Our decision is based on artistic merit, performance quality, and creative expression. We want to be clear that it is not influenced by sympathy." My stomach twisted into a tight knot. That being said, Mrs. Gable continued, a small, almost imperceptible smile touching her lips. "Sometimes the most powerful art comes from the most difficult circumstances. The first place winner of the Northwood Elementary Creative Arts Showcase is Mave." The room exploded again. Parents cheered, teachers clapped, and kids shouted her name. Mave stared at me, her mouth agape, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. I smiled, nodded, and whispered, "Go on. That's you." She leapt up and ran to the stage to accept her small, gleaming trophy. Her smile so bright it could have lit up the whole gymnasium, but while the hall roared for my daughter, my eyes stayed on Mallerie. Her daughter's name, Brianna, wasn't called for second or third place. Instead, Mrs. Gable added one final devastating statement. "Due to a serious incident of misconduct brought to our attention, Brianna has been disqualified from this year's competition. This matter will be reported to the school administration for further disciplinary action." It was like watching a mask shatter. Mallerie froze, her face a canvas of disbelief and fury. Her daughter, Brianna, burst into tears. And my parents sat there looking like someone had just slapped them. Not Mallerie, them. That's how it always was. Her humiliation was their humiliation. Her loss was their loss. Their golden girl, and by extension them, had been publicly shamed. And they couldn't stand it. For once in my life, I didn't feel a shred of pity. Not an ounce. Later that night, long after Mave was asleep in her bed, still clutching that trophy like it was a shield, my phone rang. My mother's name on the screen, I almost didn't answer. I knew what was coming. But some stupid, hopeful part of me thought maybe, just maybe, this time they'll say they're proud of her. I picked up. How could you do that to your sister? There was no hello, just that. The question, an accusation. I laughed, not the nice kind. A sharp, bitter sound that seemed to surprise even me. Excuse me? You mean, how could she do that to your 9-year-old granddaughter? You humiliated Mallerie. My mother snapped, her voice high and tight with rage. In front of the entire school, in front of her friends. She ripped Mave's costume to shreds and rubbed paint into it. I shot back, my own voice rising. She told a 9-year-old child to get used to losing, and you're worried about Mallory's feelings? There was a pause, then my father's voice, flat and cold as ever, came on the line. Family business stays in the family, Clara. You don't air it out in public. There it was, the old, worn-out script. The one they had used on me my entire life. Don't embarrass us. Don't make a scene. Pretend everything is fine while you quietly swallow the hurt. Something inside me, a wall I had been carefully constructing, for years, finally crumbled. Or maybe it finally solidified into something unbreakable. I said very clearly, if you can watch that video, if you can see what she did to Mave with your own eyes and still defend her, then you are no family to me. And you are certainly no family to my daughter. My mother gasped, a sound of pure, theatrical shock. My father started to bluster something about loyalty and respect. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but it wasn't from fear or anger anymore. It was from relief, a profound, bone-deep relief. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at my reflection in the dark window. I thought about the years I had spent trying to win their approval. All the swallowed words, the forced smiles, the quiet acceptance of my role as the lesser child. And tonight, watching them instinctively, automatically, side with their precious Mallerie, even after she had deliberately and cruelly hurt their own granddaughter, I finally saw it all for what it was. Not honesty, not tough love, just a deep, ugly current of cruelty wrapped in the suffocating blanket of family tradition. They chose her, again, and in doing so, they finally gave me the freedom to choose Mave, to choose myself. That was the line, that was the rebellion. Mave won a trophy that night, but what mattered more was what she showed them, and what I finally showed myself. Mallerie tried to break her. My parents tried to shame me back into silence. Instead, Mave stood taller than all of them, a warrior in a costume smeared with red paint and defiance. And I finally cut the ties with a family that had never truly protected either of us. They thought they could destroy her moment. Instead, they destroyed the last vestiges of the hold they still had over me. And for the first time in my 35 years of life, I felt completely and utterly free. Asterisk freedom, I discovered, doesn't arrive like a thunderclap. It settles in quietly, in the spaces where the noise used to be. After I hung up on my parents, my apartment was silent. There were no more frantic calls, no more angry texts. For the first time, the quiet didn't feel like an absence. It felt like a presence. It was the sound of a boundary finally holding firm. Mave was asleep, her little trophy on her nightstand, a golden sentinel guarding her dreams. I sat at the kitchen table, the adrenaline from the day slowly draining away, leaving behind a strange and unfamiliar calm. The phone stayed silent. I had drawn a line in the sand. I had chosen my daughter. I had chosen myself. But I knew with a certainty that settled deep in my bones that the war was far from over. They had just lost a battle. And my family, I knew, never retreated. They regrouped. The next morning, the school principal, Mr. Harrison, called. His voice was grave. Clara, I wanted to personally extend my apologies for what happened yesterday, he began. and to commend Mave on her incredible courage and talent. Thank you, Mr. Harrison. That means a lot to her. I also wanted to inform you of the steps the school is taking, he continued. Mrs. Gable's report was quite clear, and coupled with the video evidence, the board has made a decision. Brianna will be suspended for the remainder of the week, and your sister, Mallerie, has been permanently banned from all school property and events. I was stunned. I had expected a slap on the wrist, a stern talking to. This was more. Furthermore, he said, his voice firm, we are required by law to file a report with Child Protective Services regarding the incident. What your sister did constitutes emotional abuse and endangerment. My breath caught in my throat. CPS. This was escalating far beyond a family feud. And finally, he said, the school board is also recommending you file a police report for vandalism. An assault. The video is clear evidence, and they believe a precedent needs to be set. After I hung up, I sat with the information for a long time. Pressing charges. It felt like such an extreme, irreversible step. Part of me, the part that had been conditioned for 30 years to keep the peace, to not make waves, recoiled from the idea. But then I looked at the trophy on Mave's nightstand. I thought of Mallerie's sneering whisper, better get used to losing, sweetheart. This wasn't just about a ruined costume anymore. This was about sending a clear message to Mave and to myself that what happened was not okay. That there are consequences for cruelty. That afternoon, I walked into the local police precinct, the USB drive with the video clutched in my hand. I filed a report for criminal mischief and child endangerment. Not out of spite, out of principle. My daughter deserved to know that the world would not just stand by and watch while someone tried to extinguish her light. The police officer, a woman with kind but firm eyes, watched the video, her expression hardening with every second. You did the right thing, ma'am, she said. The fallout in our small suburban community was swift and brutal. The video, though not released publicly by me, had been seen by hundreds of parents and teachers in that auditorium. Whispers turned into open conversation. Mallerie, who had always been a queen bee in the PTA and the various mom groups, found herself suddenly completely ostracized. My friend, Sarah, whose son was in Mave's class, gave me the play-by-play. It was insane at pickup today, she said over the phone, her voice a mix of shock and satisfaction. Mallerie tried to talk to the other moms, and they literally turned their backs on her. I heard one of them, Jennifer P., say, I don't want my kids anywhere near a woman who would do that to a child. She's been kicked out of the book club and the planning committee for the spring fundraiser. Her perfect, curated world was imploding. The friends she used to charm now crossed the street to avoid her. The neighbors who once admired her perfect garden now closed their blinds when she walked by. Her reputation, the golden girl glow she'd carried her entire life, was gone, replaced by the ugly stain of her own actions. Of course, my parents didn't see it that way. In their eyes, I was the villain. I was the one who had humiliated Mallerie, who had taken it too far. After 2 days of silence, their counterattack began. It started with love bombing. A bouquet of expensive Lola, my favorite, arrived. At my door with a note, we're a family. We can get through anything. Love, Mom and Dad. I left them on the porch. Next came the guilt trips. My mother left a long, tearful voicemail. I don't know what we did to make you hate us so much, Clara. She sobbed. Your sister is a wreck. She can't eat. She can't sleep. She might lose her daughter's spot at the dance academy over this. Is that what you wanted? To ruin her life over a silly school contest? Then they deployed the flying monkeys. My Uncle Robert, my father's brother, called. He was the family peacemaker, a role he fulfilled by always siding with the person who yelled the loudest. Clara, he began, his voice oozing with false reason. Your parents are devastated. I think there's been a big misunderstanding. You know, how Mallory gets, she's passionate. She probably didn't mean it the way it looked. Did you see the video, Uncle Robert? I asked calmly. Well, no, but then you don't know what you're talking about, I said and hung up. The final phase was the direct emotional blackmail. A text from my dad. Your mother's blood pressure is through the roof because of all this stress. The doctor is very concerned. I hope you're happy. I stared at the message and I felt nothing. The old guilt, the familiar knot of anxiety in my stomach, it just wasn't there. It was like they were pressing a button that had been disconnected from the wiring. That evening, Mave and I were sitting on the couch, working on a puzzle. She was quiet, and I could tell something was on her mind. Mom, she finally asked, not looking up from the puzzle piece in her hand. Is Grandma mad at me? I put my own piece down and turned to face her. No, sweetie, of course not. She's not mad at you. Then why isn't she calling, or Grandpa? I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment to either perpetuate the family, lie, or to start a new, healthier truth. Sometimes, honey, I began carefully, grown-ups make bad choices. And when they get caught, it can be easier for them to be mad at the person who told the truth than to be sorry for what they did. Grandma and Grandpa are siding with Aunt Mallerie right now, and that's not fair to you. It's their choice, and it's a hurtful one. It has nothing to do with you or how much they love you. It's about their own stuff. She looked at me, her 9-year-old face a canvas of complex emotions. So they're on a timeout? I couldn't help but smile. Yes. Baby, they are on a very long timeout. She seemed to accept that. We went back to our puzzle, the quiet in our living room filled not with tension, but with a comfortable peace. We were building our own world now, a small 2-person fortress, and it was stronger than their entire dysfunctional army. The court date for Mallory's charges was set. She stood there, forced to listen to her own voice played over the courthouse speaker system. Better get used to losing, sweetheart. I almost wished I had been there to see her face. The sentence came down, 2 years of probation, 150 hours of community service picking up trash on the side of the highway, a $1,000 fine, and mandatory anger management counseling. It wasn't prison, but it was a public, humiliating stain on her permanent record. The real consequences, however, were social. Her daughter did have to transfer schools. The whispers and stares became too much. Mallerie, who had built her entire identity on being the popular, perfect mom, was now a pariah dot in the midst of all this. Mave and I found our own rhythm. With the constant pressure from my family gone, it was like our lives had opened up in full color. We went on a spontaneous weekend trip to the coast, something I never would have done before for fear of missing a family obligation. We ate junk food and built sandcastles and stayed up late watching movies. We started a new project, creating a phoenix garden in our small backyard, planting flowers in shades of red, orange, and gold. It was our own little symbol of rebirth. Mave thrived. She joined the school's drama club. She made new friends. She had found her voice not just on the stage, but in her life. The contest hadn't broken her. It had forged her. One day, about a year after the contest, I received a letter. It was from my father. I almost threw it away, but my curiosity won out. Clara, it began, his handwriting formal and stiff. Your mother and I have been attending family counseling. We have learned a lot about our own patterns. We understand now that our favoritism towards Mallerie was damaging to you, and we deeply regret the pain it caused over the years. We were wrong to defend her actions. We were wrong not to protect Mave. We know that sorry is not enough, but we are saying it anyway. We're sorry. I read the letter and I felt A quiet, somber acknowledgement. It was the apology I had waited my whole life to hear, but it had come too late. The wound had already scarred over. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. I didn't reply. The real healing wasn't in their apology. It was in the life I was building without them. It was in the sound of Maeve's laughter as she ran through our Phoenix garden. It was in the peaceful quiet of my own home. A few months ago, Mave came home from school with a flyer for this year's Creative Arts Showcase. "Can I do it again, Mom?" She asked, her eyes shining with an excitement that was now free from fear. Of course you can," I said, hugging her tight. "You can do anything." And this time I knew, with every fiber of my being, that it was the truth that my sister wanted my daughter to lose. My parents wanted me to stay silent. Instead, Maeve learned how to fight, and I finally learned how to stop losing. We don't talk to my family anymore. Maybe one day that will change. But for now, the silence is a gift. It's the space where we were finally able to grow. So what do you think? Did I go too far by pressing charges, or was it the only way to break a toxic cycle? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button for more tales of finding your voice and choosing your own family.